Okay. So in last session, if you remember, we have done some examples on JSX. So using JSX, we have created some UI components. We are able to create UI components. We have created a single UI component. We have created multiple UI component. Plus, if you remember, we have created a card. And if you remember, we have created 4 cards and we are showing on the screen. I think we have created 4 cards and we are showing on the screen. And our task was to show different data on that cards. So if I just open the previous class example, let's see how it looks. Okay, session 8. Yeah, this was our card task. If you remember, this was the task which we have done. So here we are showing this card. How many cards? 4 cards. And this card we have created using JSX. So let's copy this one in today's folder and let's work on that. Okay, let's go back here. Let's open this. Now you will see that we have written some CSS and here we have created our card logic. And if you remember, we have reused that logic 4 times. I think we have seen how to add JS code in the JSX. This part also we have discussed in the last session. Okay. So in today's session, what we are going to do, we wanted to know how to add different images on this card, how to show different names on this card. So to show different images on this card, to show different names on this card, we are going to use the concept of functions. We are going to use the concept of functions. Functions in JavaScript. So how functions concepts are used means, we are going to create one function. And our JSX code, we are going to add inside this function. Our JSX code, we are going to add inside this function. And this function, we are going to use multiple times. Okay. So what we are going to do means, we are going to create one JavaScript function, and whatever JSX code we have written to create a card, that code we will write inside this function. And then this code we will return from the function. So that whenever this function is called, this code will be written. So we are going to follow 3 steps. First, let's create JavaScript function. Create a JavaScript function. Second, add the JSX code in that function. Third, we are going to return that JSX code from that function. Return the JSX code. Now, why we are going to follow this approach, I will let you know. So let's try this. Let's go to our VS Code. Let's create here one file called card.html. Let's start with the basic HTML code. Let's add script tag with type equals to one minute guys. क्या हो गया? Okay. So here we have to integrate our React, React DOM, and Babel. And then we have to add here type attribute. And what should be the value of type attribute, guys? What should be the value of type attribute? Text slash Babel. Text slash Babel. And let's add one div with the ID root. With the ID. Now this is the template. Now what we need to do, inside this script tag, let's create one JavaScript function. So to create JavaScript function, we have to use function keyword. Give some name, whatever name you want, like card. Open parenthesis, close parenthesis, open curly brace, close curly brace. Now inside this function, add your JSX code. So we will take that JSX code from the previous file. I will copy this code as it is, and I will paste here. So first we have created the function. And in that function, we are adding the JSX code. And this JSX code, we have to return from this function. And that is what we have followed. Created a JavaScript function, added JSX code in the function, and written that JSX code. Let's copy the CSS also from the previous file. So instead of just wasting the time by rewriting the same code, I'm just copy pasting it. And let's add it. Now what we have done, we have created one JavaScript function called card. In that function card, we have written our JSX code. And we are returning it. Now this JSX code, this entire JSX code, we have to give to the React DOM.render. How to give? For that, just call here React DOM.render. And to this render function, somehow we have to give this code. Now, how to give this code? For that, call this function. Because if you call this function is returning this entire JSX code only, right? So that is why here you call that function. Call that function like normal JavaScript way. And here you pass document dot get element by ID of root. Now let's load and let's check whether card will be visible on the screen or not. If you see, card is visible. Now, how many times we called the function? One time. That's why here we got one card. Suppose if I call this function one more time, here itself what I will do, I will take one array and I will call that function 2 times here. Now 2 times if I call this function, then I will get 2 cards here. But those cards are displayed one after another. I want to display one beside another. So for that, what we can do, instead of taking this array here, we can take one div. And inside this div, we have to call JavaScript function. Now this is JavaScript function, right? This is normal JavaScript function. I have to call this function. So inside JSX, if you want to write JavaScript code, first take curly brace and then call your JavaScript function. Here also take one more and call here also. And for this, we can add class called container. We can add class name or we can add ID as a container. And I hope we have added the CSS for that container as well. Let's just check. Yes, we have that CSS for the container. Now, if I go back here and if I refresh, you will see that we got 2 cards. Like this, how many times we can call the function? We can call any number of times. We can call any number of times. So I'm calling here 1 time, 2 time, 3 time, 4 time. Now let's go back here and let's refresh. We got 4 cards. So if you see, compared to last session program and today's program, if you see the difference, the only difference is functions concept. In last session, we have created that card without using any functions concept. Directly we wrote the JSX code and we have assigned it to a variable. And that variable we are passing inside this div. Directly variable we were passing. But right now what we have done, we have created one JavaScript function. And in that function, we are writing our JSX code and we are returning that function. And that card function here we are calling it. See, I am calling like a function. Now, what is the benefit of writing the JSX code inside the JavaScript function? Now we will get the question. What is the benefit to write JSX code inside the JavaScript function? Without JavaScript function also, we can write the code by assigning to a variable. If you see in the previous class, we did not create any JavaScript function. Here, if you see, we did not create any JavaScript function. Without JavaScript function, we were able to write the code. But in today's example, I have created JavaScript function. Now, anybody can tell me what is the benefit? What is the benefit to write JSX code inside the JavaScript function? Nice. Satish gave me the answer. Any? Nice. So whatever answer I wanted, I got from Satish, the first point, and second point I got from Kirtana. And even I think Sara also gave the answer. Nice. Okay, the benefit of writing JSX code inside the JavaScript function is, the first benefit is we can reuse the code. We can reuse the code. We can reuse the code. See here, we are reusing that function, right? Multiple times we are calling that function. This is called reusability. So we have written the code to create a card only one time, but we are reusing that code multiple times. So the first benefit we get, the first benefit is we can reuse the code. Now, the second benefit is we can pass some arguments to the function. We can pass input data to the functions, in the form of parameters and arguments. We can pass input data. This is the second benefit we have. We can pass input data to the functions in the form of parameters and arguments. That is the second benefit we have. See here. Now this is my function call. Now to this function call, I can pass some argument, like I am passing here John. Here I am passing something called Raj. Here I am passing something like Kabir. Here I am passing something like Sagar. So to my function call, I can pass arguments. And when I am passing argument, I should take one parameter. So here I will take the parameter like username. This is a parameter. Now this parameter I will use inside my H3. Now here I will remove this. Inside this H3 JSX, I want to use this parameter. Now parameter is a JavaScript concept. and it is a JSX concept. So how to add JavaScript code inside the JSX? Take curly brace, add your parameter name. Now, what is the benefit? You will see that in every card, we got different names now. Okay, let me just refresh this. In every card, we will get different name now. Here we got John, here Raj, here Kabir, here Sagar. In different cards, we got different name. Now we are able to show different names. In the same way, I want to show different image also. So what we can do, we can take one more parameter called image. And this parameter, we will bind with this SRC value. So what I will do, I will remove this URL from here. Now this is attribute. This is attribute. To this attribute, I want to bind this parameter. How to bind? Here, just take curly braces, and in that curly braces, pass that parameter name. So we are taking two parameters. It means we have to pass two arguments now. Here I will pass one argument, that URL. Like this, in every function call, I will pass one argument. Here also I will pass one. Here also I will pass one. So comma, some URL, comma, some URL, comma, some URL. Now we need to get that URL, some image URLs. So let's grab some images from the browser. So I will say here, male professional pictures. Okay, let's grab some image. Okay, let's take this image, copy image link, go back here, and let's paste here. In the same way, let's take another image, copy image link, go back here, let's paste here. Now let's go back and let's take another image, copy image link, go back here, and let's paste here. See what I am doing now? For my function call, I am passing two arguments. And the moment I go back and refresh here, you will see that in different card, we got different image with different name. So how we can achieve this? Using a concept called functions, functions in JavaScript. So people will ask, why we have to create our user interface inside a JavaScript function when it comes to React? Then you have to say, if we write our JSX code or UI code inside the JavaScript function, then we have two benefits. The first benefit is we can reuse the code any number of times. And second benefit is we can pass input data. It means we can make our user interface dynamic. That is the second benefit. That is the reason we are going to write our JSX code inside the JavaScript function. Okay. So there is a concept in React called functional component. Now, what is functional component? Today you will understand. So many people don't know why we create functional component. What is the use of functional component? They learn it like a rule. They says that in React, we have to do like this only. There is no other option. But why we have to use functions? Without functions also, we can create UI. Then why function is important? So many people don't. Even I have taken a lot of interviews. I have seen that candidate don't know about it. Because they don't know internals. They don't know basics. So we are completely learning from basics, guys. Completely from basics. I don't think anyone teaches like this. Okay. Understood, guys, up to here, whatever I have explained. Just let me know on the polls if you have understood or not. I'm launching a poll. Nice. So I got almost 100% understood. Okay, but there is one problem here. The problem is now this code looks little complex. I mean, this code is not so digestive. If you see here, we are writing HTML code. We are writing HTML like code, not HTML code. We are writing HTML like code. And inside this, we are using again JavaScript kind of code. Like this, we are writing JavaScript code. Like function call we are doing here. So it is not that easy to understand sometimes. Sometimes it might look very complex. So what your React did, they gave one more technique. They gave one more technique to convert this function call into a tag format. They gave one technique to convert this function call into a tag format, Now, what is that? Let's try to understand. So can you guys tell me what we call to this part in the JavaScript? Suppose if I create like this one function, and inside that function, if I write some code, what we call to this part? What we call to this part? This entire part. What do we call to this part? Function definition. Nice. We call it as a function definition, or we call it as a declaration. We call it as a function definition or function declaration. And what do we call to this part? What do we call to this one? It's a function call. It's a function call. It's a function call. It means whenever we create a function, if you want to execute the code of the function, then you have to call the function. You have to call the function. And this is the syntax in JavaScript. This is the syntax in the JavaScript. Now React came with a new syntax. React is saying whenever you are creating a function, for user interface or to create user interface, whenever you are creating a function to create user interface, such functions, you start with a capital letter. Means whenever we are creating a function, our function name should start with the capital letter, like this card. And inside this, you write your JSX code and return that JSX code. So inside your function, if you are writing JSX code or any code to create UI, such function names start with capital letter. And if you are starting any function name with the uppercase, then I will provide you a new technique to call this function. And what is that new technique? The new technique is tag format or element format. We call it as an element format or tag format. Generally, how we call the functions like this? Like this, we call the functions generally. But React is saying no need to call in this way. I will provide you a new technique to call the function. What is that new technique? That new technique is an element format or a tag format. What is that? Start with your angle bracket, open your angle bracket, then your function name, add your function name, and then close your angle bracket as a self-closing tag. This is one way, or else you can call it like a opening or closing tag also. Both are possible. You can call like a self-closing tag format, or you can call like a opening and closing tag format also. Now React is saying this is the new technique to call the function. This is the old technique. This is the JavaScript technique to call the function. This is the React technique to call the function. But if you want to use this technique, you have to follow one rule. What is that rule? Your function name should start with the uppercase. Let's try it will work or not. Let's create separate file now. Let me create here separate file. I will say card. I will say new card.html. Let me copy the code as it is. Let me copy the code and paste here. So right now what I will do, I will copy this code. I will remove from here. Okay, let me remove all this. Let me remove all this. Now if you see here, we just have CSS. In body, we have one div and we have script. Now, as per our understanding, if you want to create any UI, first create the JavaScript function. Okay, let's create one JavaScript function. Function card. And this time we are following the React advice. What is that? Start your function name with the uppercase. Fine. Inside this function, add your JSX code. Adding my JSX code. Now return that JSX code. Add the return statement. Add the return statement. So what we did, we created one function. You see here, we have created one JavaScript function. Then we have added JSX code, and then we are adding the return statement. The only difference from previous approach is, in previous approach, our function name started with lowercase. In this technique, we are starting our function name with uppercase. Now, you call React DOM. React DOM dot render. Let's add here. Let's call this function now. The first argument should be function. So in normal JavaScript way, this is the way we call the function. Document dot get element by ID of root. This is the old technique of calling the function. Now in this case, if I load, it works. It works. So if you see here, we got one card. But React is saying you don't follow this technique to call the function. You don't follow this technique. You don't follow this technique. Then which technique we have to follow? This technique. So let's try this technique now. So what I will do here, I will remove this old technique and I will call my function in a tag format or an element format. This is the new technique. And just for our satisfaction, I will change this name. I will say here something like Rohan Verma. And let's go back to our browser. Let's refresh and let's check. See, still our UI is created. And if you see the name, it's a Rohan Verma. It means this technique is working. This technique is working. I want two more cards. I want two more or three more cards. What we can do? We can remove this function call from here. We can take a div. To that div, we can assign one ID as a container. And for that container, already we have added CSS. And here, let's call the function. Now, how to call the function? In a tag format, not in a JavaScript format. So if you want to call in this format, if you want to call in JavaScript format, then what we need to do? We have to add first curly brace, and then we have to call like this card. How many times? If you want 2 times, call 2 times. If you want 3 times, call 3 times. This is the old technique. If you want to use old technique, then first take curly braces and then you add your JavaScript function call. So 2 cards will be visible. But I don't want to use this technique. I want to use new technique. If you are using new technique, no need to take that curly braces now. No need to take that curly braces. Directly you can call your function. Because this is a tag format. This is a HTML format. So no need to call. I am calling 4 times now. And if you go back here and refresh, now you got like this. You got like this. Now compare this both the technique. compare this both the technique. So I will take this screenshot and I will paste here. Let's compare both the technique now. This is our new technique. This is the new technique. Let's compare our old technique. Okay, this is our old technique. Let's go back here. This is the old technique. This is our old technique. Now you compare. Now have a look on this. This is new technique. This is old technique. Now compare this. Okay. Meanwhile, let me change it. Let me add this 4 times so that we will have this code. Go back here, refresh it. No change in the output. Now compare this both the technique, guys. Now tell me which technique looks good. Which technique looks good? New technique looks good or old techniques look good? Which technique looks like HTML? New or old? New technique. Now, new technique gives us the feel of HTML. By seeing this code, anybody can say it's very similar to HTML, but it looks very complex syntax. This old technique looks very complex. Okay, so this is also called function call. This is also function definition. Now focus on this statement, guys. Focus on this statement. In React, any function which starts or any function name which starts with uppercase in bracket capital letter. Any function name which starts with uppercase, or we can say capital letter, and returns JSX code or React element code, or you can say UI or UI. Any JavaScript function name which starts with uppercase or capital letter and returns JSX code, or React element or UI. Such functions are called React functional component. They are called React functional component. React functional component. So what is React functional component if someone asks you? Then you have to say React functional component is a JavaScript function which returns JSX and whose name starts with uppercase. Any function whose name starts with uppercase and returns JSX. Such functions are called functional component. So here we have created our first functional component. So from now, we should not say this as a function. We should not call this as a function. We have to use a term called component. And which component? Functional component. It is called functional component. Why we have to create functional component? What is the use of functional component? If someone asks you, then you have to say these 2 points. You have to say these 2 points. Understood, guys? Let me know whether you have understood or not. Let me raise the poll again. Okay, I have raised the phone. Did you understood what is functional component, React functional component? See how we are understanding each and everything completely from basics. So once your basics are strong, then you can learn any advanced concepts of React in very easier way. React is very, 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 very easy, guys. The only thing is you have to understand. Once you understand, you can play with React. You can play with React. And trust me, there is a lot of demand in the market right now for React. Lot of demand. In backend, whether you are using Node.js, Spring Boot, ASP.NET Core, Django, or Laravel, whatever you are using, maximum people are preferring React in the front end. Maximum people are preferring React in the front end. With React, if you know Next.js, that would be great. That would be great combination. With React, if you know Next.js, that would be great combination right now. But again, if you want to learn Next.js means you should know React. You should know React. So Next.js is just built on the top of React. Next.js is just built on the top of React. All the React concepts we can use in the Next.js. At the end of this series, I will tell you why Next.js is important. Once you know React, then I will explain you why Next.js is important, why market is moving towards Next.js. And React itself is telling use Next.js. React itself tells that use Next.js. Now, when React developer are forcing us to learn, it means there might be something in that. That is the reason they are forcing us. Okay. So here also again we got 100% result. So everybody is able to understand. Whoever replied, everybody is able to understand. Great. Yeah, but now question is, okay, you said this is a new function call. Now to this new function call, I want to pass some input data. How to pass? How to pass input data to this new function call? If you see here in our old technique, this was our old technique. In this old technique, we have used argument concept to pass input. But in this new technique, how to pass input? How to pass input? So in this old technique, we can pass input data as an argument. But in new technique, how to pass? In this new technique, how to pass the input data? For that, React gave the solution. Now what React says, if you want to pass input data to your new function call, in that case, use attribute concept. So React says pass input data to functional component as a attribute. What is the meaning of attribute? I hope everybody know what is attribute. In HTML, we have used lot of attributes, right? For example, here if I use input element. Now this input element will have lot of attributes, right? Every attribute will be in the key value pair. Like this is attribute. We use placeholder also. Now here, if you see in this example, in HTML, we call this as attribute. Type is attribute, placeholder is attribute. In the same way, now we are calling the function in this format only, right? So if you want to pass any input data, pass as an attribute. So let's try. So I will keep this code as it is. Let me create new file. I will say something called props.html. and let me paste here. Now to this card, I want to pass some input data. How to pass? Pass as an attribute. So attribute will be always in the key value pair. So the syntax is like whatever key you want to take, you take. I am taking name equals to double quotes. This is our HTML format. In React, instead of double quotes, use curly brace. Use curly brace. And inside this curly brace, you can pass any type of data. You can pass number like this. You can pass Boolean value like this. If you want, you can pass one object. If you want, you can pass one array. If you want, you can pass one string also. One string also. Now let's add all the female names. I'm adding here Ria. Here also name. And here I will add something called Roshni. Here also let's add something. Here something like Pooja. One more. Let's add here Aisha. See, I'm adding attribute. But here you have to take care of one thing. For same function call, when we are passing the attributes, the key name should be same. Key name should be same. So here also name. Values can be different. These values can be different, but key names across same function call should be same. And your component will take only one parameter. It will take only one parameter. And that parameter is an object type. That parameter will be object type. It means here we have to take only one parameter. I am taking a parameter called properties because attributes are properties, right? So I'm just taking a name called properties. You can take whatever name you want. You can take your name also, or if you can take only X also. This is just parameter. You can take whatever name you want. So I am taking a name called properties. Now internally, these properties will be treated as an object. It will be treated as an object by React. So in your functional component, the first parameter is always object type. It means internally, properties is one object. And here we are passing something like attribute, right? While calling our function, we are passing this attribute, right? Now this attribute will go and store inside this object as a property like this. It will store as a property. So here what you have to remember means your functional component will take only one property. It will take only one property, and that is an object type. And whatever input data you are passing as an attribute, this input data will go and store inside this object. Now who will store? Internally React will do. Internally React will. Now I want to access this value. So how to access that value? Because this is object JavaScript concept. So inside JSX, if you want to write JavaScript, use curly braces. Now you know object name, that is properties, and you know property key name, that is name. So here we are going to write properties dot name. And the moment I go back here, so let me load this. You will see here Ria, Roshni, Pooja, Aisha. So how to pass input data to our functional component means using attributes concept. Now this is called attribute concept. And technically in React, we are going to call this as a props. In normal HTML, we call it as an attribute, but in React world, we are going to call it as a props. So now here, this part is called props. This is called props. So what is props? If someone asks you, what is props? Props is a data. Props is a input data, which we pass to the component, in a attribute format, Props is not a object, guys. Remember, props is not a object. So here, so many people have this confusion. This is not a props. This one is props. Here, this is called props. This is called props. This is called props. This is called props. So what is props? Props is a property, or props is a input data which we pass to the component. Which component? Functional component, in a attribute format. In a attribute format. In a attribute format. So props is the input data which we pass to the component in a attribute format. So here it is a props. Now this is just variable name. It is just variable name. It is just a parameter name. Whatever name you want, you can give. Now we are going to call this as a props. We are going to call this as a props. That is the reason what people will do. Instead of taking any random name, they prefer to take this parameter name as also props. They prefer to take this parameter name also props. Props means shortcut of properties. Actually, we call attributes as a property. Actually, we call this as a property. So the short form of that property is props. That is how the name came. That is how the name came. But is it mandatory to take the name here props only? Answer is no. You can take whatever you want. If you want, you can take X also. If you want, you can take X also. Whatever you want, you can take. But generally we use props because we know that inside this parameter, we are going to store props. That's why we take it as a props. Now here also we have to change it to props. Now see here, I will just add Riya Verma. You will see that Riya Verma will be visible on the screen. So here we got Riya Verma. Understood, guys? We have learned two concepts now: React functional component and props. And we learned why these concepts we are using. What is the problem?